This interview is being tape recorded. My name is Paul Maliri, and this is X Job Downloaded. And today I'm interviewing Professor Ross Wolf. Now, Ross is a professor in Florida, but he is also the lead for the police reserve in Orange County. Now, have I introduced you correctly, sir?
That is correct, Paul. Thank you. Yes. Yeah.
We met. I can't remember what year you came over here, but I facilitated a visit to the Tower of London for the special constabulary in the city, and you came over as a contingent. So that's how we met. Though we've never physically met, but I thought, well, I'll take the opportunity and ask you to take part. Now, before we get into your policing side, you're a professor. What do you actually do, sir? What's your actual role?
Yeah, I'm a professor of criminal justice, so I actually am a faculty member who teaches in the area of policing, and volunteer policing is actually one of the areas of my research. But I also am an administrator at the University of Central Florida. So I've been serving in a administrative role for one of our campuses in downtown city of Orlando. It's called UCF Downtown. And today I am serving as the interim dean of the College of Community Innovation and Education at UCF, which includes programs such as criminal justice and legal studies and public administration, as well as our education programs.
How very cool. So in order to become a cop, a full-time cop, do you have to go through this course, this university course?
No, actually. For a long time, agencies were increasing their educational standards for police officers, and many of them were starting to require that incoming police officers have at least a bachelor's degree in something, right. But you didn't have to have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. A lot of people would, though, because that was their area of interest. So they wanted to learn in that area before they became police officers. So, yeah.
And how long have you been doing that job?
I have been a full-time faculty member at the University of Central Florida since 1999. So right. I've been doing that for a long time, yes.
And are you a Floridian?
I am a transplanted Floridian. I moved here. My family moved here when I was 4 years old. So pretty much my entire life I've been in Florida. Yeah.
It's a great place. I love Orlando, as you know, and I love Florida. And my parents for many years had a property in Hernando County on the other coast, or on the coast. And before that, they had a property near St. Pete's. So we were regular visitors to that side.
Actually, that's where I grew up, is over in that area. So,
was it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. Yeah. How did you get into the reserves, and what was your motivation to become a reserve with the Orange County Police Service?
That's a great question, and one that probably will take me a minute or two to explain, if that's okay.
It's on your side, sir.
So I was working on my master's degree at the University of Central Florida. I was working on a master's in public administration, and I had a friend of mine who was a college friend of mine who was working as a deputy sheriff. And I had been trying to connect with her for a while because we both graduated from our undergraduate programs, and I hadn't been able to schedule any time with her because she was so busy as a deputy. So she suggested, "Hey, why don't you come out and do a ride along with me? Get in the car with me, and we'll have time to talk. Then we'll be together for 10 to 12 hours, and you can see some of what I do during my job." And I thought that was a great idea, so I did it. At the end of the shift, she had told me about being a volunteer with the agency and what that looked like. And I was caught hook, line, and sinker. I wanted to do this as a volunteer. So I went through what's in Florida called an auxiliary academy. It's a shortened, abbreviated police academy. People who graduate from the auxiliary academy in Florida are only allowed to perform law enforcement functions when they are under the control of someone who's fully certified in Florida. And I did that for 4 years while I moved out of my graduate degree in public administration and took a job doing development work, fundraising work, and was making pretty good money at that fundraising. I was enjoying the money, but not so much enjoying the work. And at a point about 4.5 years into being an auxiliary deputy and working in this new career that I had started in, I decided that really I'd rather be working as a police officer and making half the pay, which is literally what I did. I went to making half the pay and went full time then. So I became a full-time police officer. I had to go back through the entire police academy because the auxiliary academy doesn't count for any of the
Right.
regular academy. So I had to go back all the way through, had to go through what we call field training. I had to do the entire field training program as an auxiliary, but I had to redo it again as a new deputy. So I felt pretty confident that I could pass and do okay in field training, and became I worked the road, so I was a road patrol officer, became a field training officer, and applied for later and became a detective and worked in our auto theft unit, which did investigations, but also we were a plainclothes tactical unit that would go out and look for stolen cars and capture them using our vehicles and covert methods in order to capture them. So I really had a lot of fun doing that.
Very cool.
Yeah. But during that whole time, though, I was also so once I became a full-time deputy, I started working on my doctorate degree, and I was doing that one class at a time. I didn't have a lot of time to do it, but I did it one class at a time. And while I was a detective, I graduated with my doctorate degree, and I got an offer. I like to say I got an offer my wife couldn't refuse. It's very stressful being the family of a police officer,
Yeah.
and she really was happy that I was looking at a different full-time career. But when I made the move in 1999 to being a full-time faculty member, I decided I would stay on as a reserve with the sheriff's office and continue my volunteer work. And so I've been doing that now since 1999 as a reserve.
Wow. How long? I mean, you must be one of the longest serving reservists.
I am among the longest serving, but we have had several that have 40, 45 years of service. I'm right now at about almost 35 years now myself. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let me take you back. What year did you become a full-time police officer?
That would have been in 1994 or 5, somewhere in there. Yeah.
Okay. So 30 years ago now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And so 4 years before that, 4.5 years before that, I was a volunteer. So 34 plus years total right now. Yeah. Yeah.
And if you were doing full-time service, would you be retired by now?
Oh yeah, absolutely. or at least able to retire. Yes,
Able to
absolutely.
retire,
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, what types of crimes did you deal with in those early years, and how have they differed to what you now deal with?
So early, I was working patrol. So patrol, as you know, encounters all types of criminal activity, everything from minor infractions, stealing things from stores, retail theft kind of things, to bank robberies, to murders, homicides, domestic violence, everything in between. So early in the years, it was one call after another, and still that's the way it is for most patrol officers today. That very infrequent times are they able to sit and relax. It's moving from one call to another call to another call. And then, as I mentioned, I focused as a detective. I focused on auto theft, which was a very niche area to work on as a detective. But we found, as my unit found, as detectives working in that area, that what we were often doing is encountering people who are using stolen vehicles to commit other types of crimes, because with the hope that they wouldn't be discovered then on who they were if they were using a stolen car. So we were often involved in many other different types of crime as well when we were investigating auto theft.
And as I alluded to, I mean, most people that come from Florida or live in Florida aren't originally Floridians. It's got a very transient population, hasn't it? I mean, it's well known for that, and it's not just about Mickey Mouse and Universal Studios. It's a melting pot, isn't it?
It is, and there are a lot more people today, though, that were born here, because there was a lot more people that moved many years ago here. Yes, but you're right. Yes.
And the area has grown, hasn't it? I mean, I found it quite surprising how much the area had grown, because you used to have to drive a good 20 minutes to get from your hotels to Disney, and now Disney's almost on your doorstep. As the hotels have got closer, Disney's expanded.
Yes.
Have you noticed a change in the population and the way that crime is committed, or has it stayed pretty much the same?
I think that because you end up having a more concentrated population, you tend to see crime more often or hear about crime more often. We also have, as you do, more capability of the press to see the crimes. You have social media recording crimes. So I think that the perspective, the opportunity for people to think about crime because they're aware of it is much higher.
Yeah.
But I think that the types of crimes, although they've changed, I mean, when I there's a law in Florida that it's a misdemeanor, a low-level crime to steal oranges unless you get to 2,000 pieces of citrus fruit. And once you get to 2,000 pieces of citrus fruit, it's a felony.
No.
So, I mean, that gives you an example of this Florida in general was very citrus
Yeah.
agriculture for a long time. It still is. There are portions that still are very agriculture uh, related, but those crimes are less investigated now than they used to be.
Of course.
Yeah.
How big an area does Orange County cover, though? I mean, I know the area fairly well, but what's the sort of square miles that they cover?
You're going to make me think this through, aren't you?
Well, no, I mean, let's say it another way. Because Orange County is only one part of Disney, isn't it? Or is it?
Well, so Disney takes up a very small portion in the southwest corner of Orange County, right?
Okay,
And I just looked, I cheated. I just looked. We're 903 square miles is Orange County.
okay, and how
So
many?
it's a pretty big landmass.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a big mess. And
Yeah.
how many police officers would cover that sort of area?
Well, the agency, Orange County Sheriff's Office, which covers all of the county, has about 1,600 or more law enforcement officers right now, 1,600, 1,800 law enforcement officers. But within Orange County, there are also about a dozen, a little more than a dozen cities. So this Orlando is one of those cities within
Yes,
Orange County. And Orlando has its own police force of about 800 to 900 officers. And
right.
then the other smaller cities are anywhere from 20 police officers to 120 police officers. So, if you add them all up, there's probably close to 2,900, 2,800, 2,900 police officers within the county. Yeah.
Plus the federal law enforcement, your FBI.
Yeah, and state. So those are all just local in the United States, very, very different from the
Yes,
UK, which has a nationalized model. Um, Florida, as part of the US, uh, has a very has a system that is very local oriented.
yes.
There are 18,000 law enforcement agencies in the United States.
Wow.
And as I mentioned, there's just Orange County and the agencies that are within Orange County, there's already 14, 15 agencies that are there. That doesn't count the university where I work has its own police department.
Right.
So we're talking 90 to 100 fully sworn police officers that work for that agency. You've got the Florida Highway Patrol, which patrols our highways and handles traffic accidents on highways and dealing with crime that occurs, through interstate travel. You've got local school boards. Orange County has its own police department that works for the school system. So they have that, the lower level school kids, they have a police department. You have federal officers that work at federal courthouses. You have, so there's just a myriad of different agencies that are all working in the same area at any time.
And do they all get sworn with the same powers? Do they all have the same powers?
Similarly, so if they're within Florida, if they're Florida agencies, so they're Highway Patrol, Florida Department of Law Enforcement, school board, uh, university police, city police, county sheriff's offices, yes, they all have the same powers and the same training. They all go through the same required training. Federal agencies, of course, have different training and require different, based on what they do as their function, they focus on different types of training.
Now, is there a competition between the different departments? Do you have inter-department rivalry or inter-force rivalry? How does that work, and who takes primacy on an investigation?
It's a very complicated and a good question also.
Sorry.
That's okay. No, It really depends on where the incident happens. Um, every jurisdiction has its own footprint that it's responsible primarily for. I'm going to use the city of Orlando as an example. And again, the city of Orlando is a city within the county of Orange.
Yep.
And so if something happens within the footprint of the city of Orlando, they're responsible for it. They handle the call. But if an Orange County deputy who works for the sheriff's office is in the city and encounters something, they can still take action.
Right.
And they can take primary responsibility for whatever they initiate. But if a call goes out, it's going to belong to the city.
Oh, okay.
So yeah. Now you asked if there's rivalries. Sometimes there's fun rivalries. We pick on each other because we work for different agencies, and it's just a fun thing that police officers pick on firefighters and firefighters pick on police officers, and the same thing happens within police aid, but sometimes there is less of a fun aspect to it in that people, normally it's not like what you would see on TV. On TV, you might see, well, this is my jurisdiction. I get this call. And the other agency going, no, 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 it's our jurisdiction. In reality, what we're doing is, oh no, you take the call. You can have it. We don't want it. So please, you take it. And so then you have to decide who really is responsible for the call based on where it happened. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, this is the other complicated things. There are federal crimes.
That's right.
Which I assume that the FBI and similar would take.
Exactly. And it's not just a footprint. It's not just the actual geographic area. It's also the type of crime that you're doing the investigation on. Right. So in a federal case, so for example, a bank robbery, that's a federal crime in the United States to rob a bank. And so even though a local agency may be the first to respond to that, it may be within their jurisdiction, normally what's going to happen is they're going to ask a federal agency to either take it over or at least monitor the investigation as it happens. So a local agency could do, I don't want to say there's ever anything like a minor bank robbery, but let's say it was something where it was just a note and nobody saw a weapon and very little cash was taken, then the local agency might actually take the lead in doing the investigation, but the federal agency would monitor it and be prepared to file charges from the federal level because it's a federal crime versus a local crime. Yeah.
And then follows, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there are federal prisons, jails.
That's right.
And there are local jails.
Yeah, so also a complicated system. Local jails, so the local, what we call jails are different than prisons. Yeah. Jails are meant for those people who are awaiting trial or have been convicted of misdemeanor crimes or right. Low-level crimes, where prisons are for people who've been convicted of felonies or major crimes. And then there's different levels of prisons also, because you could have a low-level prison where it's, the security doesn't need to be as tight as it does have to be in some other prisons. So, yeah.
Yeah, because I remember there was a ball player called Darryl Strawberry who went to the local jail in Hernando County, and that was big news at the time.
Yeah.
As the boss, I suppose, of the reservists, what do you now do? What's your role within that? Do you still patrol? Do you still get actively involved?
Every once in a while I do. Obviously, with any type of job where you work your way up in a leadership role, you tend to do less of the actual work you originally signed up to do or wanted to do coming into it. That happens with full-time police as well. So if you start out as a road patrol officer and you love doing road patrol, but you get promoted to sergeant, you're going to be doing less of the work you did as a road patrol officer as a sergeant. Yeah, and the same thing happens in the reserve unit. So really, primarily, my function right now is administrative work. I have to, I have to monitor the training of everyone in the unit, making sure that everyone's keeping up with their training. I have two majors that work for me. So I'm the reserve chief, and I have two reserve majors that are underneath me. And then we have underneath that captains, lieutenants, sergeants, and the deputies. And we have to monitor training. We have vehicles that are issued to our unit. So we have to make sure that those are properly inventoried, cared for, make sure that they're being utilized. We have equipment. We have to make sure that everyone has the right equipment, and we also inventory that and take care of that. if we have complaints against any of our personnel, our unit has to handle at least the initial investigation. If it goes really serious, we would hand it off to what's called our professional standards division.
Yeah.
They would handle it from there. So it becomes a much more administrative role at my level, but I do still get to go out once in a while and patrol. Yeah.
Is there a rub between the regular officers and the reservists? Is there a good working relationship, or is there, are they aloof?
I generally say there's a very good working relationship. However, just like in any job, the individual matters, and some individuals are more aloof, as you said, towards the reserves than others. And actually, some reserves have a chip on their shoulder more than others do about not being full time. So it really depends on the individual. But we, as a unit right now, we're more than 60% former full-time people.
Oh, right.
So we have a lot of people that come, either they worked as a police officer or a deputy sheriff for a number of years, and they found a new career, or they decided that they just want to do something different with, full-time, but they've stayed on as reserve. So we have a lot of those. But we also have a lot that have retired, and some of them in very senior roles, senior leaders from the sheriff's office that now serve as reserves. And so when you have that, it's hard for full-timers to look at the reserves and go, oh, they don't know anything. When you've got the guy who's been running the SWAT team for 20 years, as a reserve, or you've got someone who's been running our training unit for 20 years. So it makes it more difficult on them to feel that way.
Yeah, of course. And what sort of deployments do the reserves have in Orange County? I mean, you've mentioned a couple there, SWAT team, etc. Do they get involved in that, or is it the more, how do I say, the more standard procedures?
Yeah, that's a good question too. So we are allowed to do anything within the agency that we have the proper training to do.
Right.
We have had people, for example, on the SWAT team. But if you think about the SWAT team, they have a lot of training that they do. They're constantly doing training. They're constantly getting call outs, even if it's not something that ends up being something that ends up being a very urgent situation. They're called out to make sure it doesn't become a bad situation.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of need for time for those. So over the years, we found that that's not a good fit for reserves because they have other jobs or other other things in their life that they're worried about. But we can do anything that we're probably trained for. And an example might be our search and rescue, or our dive team, our scuba diving team.
Wow.
So we have a team of deputies that will go into lakes and recover evidence, or in the case of an emergency, if a car goes in the water and they're able to be called out quickly, they might go in actually trying to rescue somebody who's in a car or something. More often for recovery of evidence and things, though.
Yeah.
And so a reserve could become a member of that dive team if they had the proper training, they were willing to do the amount of time necessary and respond to the calls, they'd be willing to do that. So currently we have people who are on our mounted patrol, which is our horseback patrol for the agency. We have motorcycle deputies who work on the motorcycle unit. We call it the motors unit. Training division, we have people. But generally speaking, the reserves are asked to do patrol. That's their primary function. Sure. But we have a policy that says if you have 20 or more years experience with the agency, and that includes as a reserve.
Yep.
So if you have 20 or more years experience as a reserve or full-timer, you don't have to do patrol. You can do work wherever you're best suited and want to work.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, how often do you have to do a firearms qualification? Or do you just carry the gun without going into any training? I mean, look, you're talking to a nation here that hasn't had guns in circulation for some considerable time. Not we've got shotguns, but we haven't got real guns.
Right. Well, shotguns are pretty dangerous guns.
They are pretty dangerous. They are. You've obviously seen me shoot, but but the fact is, we don't have semi-automatic or automatic weapons readily available. How often do you have to qualify as a reservist? compared to a regular sworn officer?
Everything that a reserve does with my agency, it meets the exact same standards as the full-time personnel. So in our agency, we're required to qualify, meaning we go out and actually have to pass a state course of qualification with the firearm once a year. But we also do other types of firearms training, and we're required to do what we call block training. It used to be a week that you would, as a full-timer, you would take an entire week to go to a training that they would have you do over every year. They don't do it that way anymore. It's now broken up into smaller pieces that you do, but they still call it block training. So one of those days would be qualifications and some simple firearms drills. But then we have other days that we do in block training. There are things like active shooter scenarios. We have a simulator that we have to use once a year where we have to go in and we do shoot, don't shoot scenarios. It's almost a 360-degree simulator where you carry a firearm and you carry weapons in it and you talk to the screen and you do, you treat it as a real situation and you handle whether it's a shoot or don't shoot situation. And if you do shoot, it measures exactly where you shot and what you did and lets you go back and look at it to see if you were efficient. So there's a lot of additional training besides just the qualifications that we do every year.
Wow. Because, look, I'm a cop, you're a cop. It's your worst nightmare, isn't it? The firearms situation, whatever it is, you've got the biggest theme parks in the world, everything there. And, it does attract, Florida attracts some very strange people. Dare I say it really does. Well, it's a terrible thing, but the hijackers from 9/11, they did their training in Florida.
Training in Florida. That's right. They did. Yep.
And it is but of course here, if I turned up to a job and somebody had a gun, I knew they were a bad guy straight away because they were never allowed to have a gun in the first place.
Right.
Whereas you as a police service, you've got to make that distinction. And it's a tough job at the best of times. But when you've got somebody shouting and they've got a gun and you've got someone else shouting and they've got a gun or someone's been shot, you've then got to work out who is the good guy, who's the bad guy, and it makes it all the more difficult. But have you ever been placed in that situation?
I've had several times in my career where I've had to make a shoot, don't shoot decision. And luckily for me, they've all been don't shoot. I didn't have to shoot someone. Good. But I've had several times in my career where I've had my gun pointed at someone, finger on the trigger, potentially ready to pull the trigger if I needed to, and it went a better way than that. So thank goodness. But we just have to in our type of policing, we have to treat every call as if it has a firearm. You just have to expect that there's going to be a firearm, and if there's not, that's great. Yeah. But you can't go into it with the mental that you're safe, that there's no firearm here. And through training, one of the things we learn is, at the very least, you've brought a firearm to the scene, and even if nobody else has one, they could come after yours. So that's one of the things you learn in training is every call is a potential firearm situation. Yeah.
And do the officers get a choice in the weapons that they have? I.e., could they choose their own Glock or Beretta, or are they issued by the sheriffs?
There are some agencies, especially small agencies, that allow officers to make their own decision on what to carry. But most agencies, especially the larger ones, have a standard weapon that are utilized by everyone. And there's some good reasons for that. If you were to be involved in some sort of situation where you had to use multiple rounds of ammunition and you needed another magazine to reload, if everybody around you is using the same weapon, it's easier to find or have someone hand you another magazine. Where if you had a different one, it would be almost impossible potentially to do that. So that's one of the reasons why, but also because there's buying power. Agencies have buying power when they purchase 2,000 weapons of the same kind. They're able to get them at a better rate than if they allow all sorts of different choices to be made. But most police officers also carry what we call off-duty weapons. So ones when we're not on duty, Usually they're personally owned weapons that we would carry that are much smaller than our duty firearms, and those you can pretty much choose whatever you'd like to choose as long as it meets the minimum standards of the agency.
Right.
Yeah.
And is Florida a concealed carry state, or what are the gun laws
Yeah,
there?
that's a very timely question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're allowed to carry concealed in Florida right now without any type of license, anything. So you can carry a concealed firearm. However, just this past week, so depending on when your viewers happen to watch this, in September of 2025,
Yeah.
our state Supreme Court just came out and said that it is unconstitutional to deny individuals the right to open carry. So, so right now, at least, unless things change coming up, it's, we're not going to be enforcing any types of laws that are on the books to
Wow.
keep people from carrying open firearms in public places. Yeah,
So they'll be able to walk around with a firearm on show
in a
as
public place.
in a
Yeah,
public place.
in a private place, so like Disney, they can restrict that. They can say, no,
Oh,
it's our property. We're not going to allow you on our property with a firearm. And
good.
they do. They have great systems set up at Disney, at Universal, at
Yeah.
all the big parks that
Yeah.
keep you from coming in with any type of firearm. But yeah, in public places, you would be allowed to do so right now. Yeah.
That's pretty unnerving. I mean, that said, is whether they've got it on display or not, it's still, for a simple Brit, it's still pretty unnerving.
Sure. Yeah.
How often do you have to undertake the role in the reservist? How many hours a month do you have to do?
Our reserves are required to work 12 hours of law enforcement duty every month, plus do a 4-hour training meeting every month.
Right.
So it's 16 hours a month that's required. Most of our reserves do far more than that. They tend to volunteer more 20, 30, 40 hours a month. But the minimum is 16 hours. Again, that 12 hours in a law enforcement doesn't necessarily have to be patrol. If you have 20 or more years experience, you can work anywhere. So you could do school resource officer, you could do criminal investigations, you could work if you have the training and the desire to work in the area, you can work in those areas as well. So it doesn't have to be in patrol.
Very cool.
But we're allowed to pick and choose when we work. I believe very similar to what the special constables are allowed to do in England. You can pick and choose where and when you work, but we often try to also get our reserves together to work details together to do a patrol saturation in an area, and we're all out there working together. And we've had several instances. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Pulse shooting incident that happened in Orlando. It's been quite a while now. I think it was 2016, so
Yep.
almost 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. That night, actually, the reserves had been working a detail together. We'd been working a reserve detail where we had a bunch of us, not all of us, not the whole unit out, but there was probably about 20 or 30 reserves working that night. And most of us had gone home at the end of the shift because Pulse didn't happen till after 2 o'clock, and that's 2 o'clock is usually the end of shift. And so
Yeah.
at that point, most people are done, and the call went out, after 2 o'clock, so 2:10, 2:11. So I can't remember the exact time, but three of our reserves were still working at that time, and actually went into Pulse and were awarded the Medal of Valor for going in and rescuing people that were inside.
Wow.
And that's an unknown fact. And people know about Pulse, but don't know that some of the officers that were there that were helping out were 100% volunteer officers.
Unbelievable. Do you get paid for it in the US?
No. So again, it depends on what agency you work for. So there are some agencies, and there are a lot of beach towns, for example, or small agencies that have an influx of people at certain times of the year.
Yep.
That do pay for their volunteers. Orange County, we don't pay for people to work as reserves, but we do allow our reserves to work what we call off-duty jobs. And I don't want to get too complicated, but anything we do for the sheriff's office, we do for free. But
Yeah.
there are jobs that even full-time people can get paid extra duty for, or they get paid
Yes.
over, get paid overtime. And Disney is a good example of that. So Disney likes having a bunch of police officers at the metal detectors as you come in, because
Yep.
if someone has a gun on them, they want to make sure there's a deputy there to deal with the situation. So there's usually a ton of police officers there. Well, full-time deputies who have worked there 40 hours over the week are allowed to work those types of positions for extra pay, and Disney would pay the sheriff's office to then pay the
Yep.
officer to work it. So reserves are allowed to work those and get paid for them, those types of duties, but not the regular policing type out on patrol. We don't get paid for that. Yeah.
And I've got to tell you, it's very reassuring to see cops walking around Disney.
Yeah.
It
It,
really,
th-
it really is. You know,
yeah.
and you know, you guys and girls, they all look so smart. Their uniforms are pristine, and you know you're in Florida when you see them. You know, it's absolutely fantastic. What does the future look like for the reservists? I mean, what is retention and recruitment like for you guys?
I think a lot like what's going on everywhere else in the world. Policing right now is a difficult career to recruit people into right now at this point in
Yeah,
time. But I think in the US especially, we're starting to finally see an uptick in people choosing to work in policing full time again. I think that downtick that we've had for a while now since COVID has really hurt volunteer units throughout the country. Many have seen a decline. Um, my hope is that turns around again for volunteers as much as it has for the full time, and we start to see that increase. My unit is in a tough spot right now. We've gone from a high of about 120 reserves who worked for the Orange County Sheriff's Office, to now we're less than 80, less than more like 75 range. So it's been tough, and we were more of a community volunteer type unit. So we were more 50-50, where we had 50% were former full-time police officers in some way, and the other 50% had never worked in policing, never wanted to be a full-time police officer, but wanted to do this as a volunteer.
yeah,
And now we've moved more towards, we're getting close to the 75% former police officers now in my unit, and more like 25% of the ones who've come from the community. So I think that's for units in the US that allow or that recruit former full-time people to come to the reserve unit. I think that's pretty consistent with what's going on everywhere. So I'm hopeful that we'll see a turnaround, but right now it's questionable about where we're going. Yeah.
do you get time from your daytime job in order to undertake your reserve duty, or is that additional?
It's additional. If I do work for the sheriff's office, and it is during the regular work week, I'll have to take annual leave for it.
Right.
I'm really interested in bringing what the UK has, employer supported policing, to the US. I've been trying and trying for decades now, since I've been to the UK for the first time, to bring that idea here to the US, and we don't really have it. And that's, as you know, it's where the employer allows someone who's doing volunteer police work to take some time from work, usually in a paid capacity, to do policing, and we don't have that here. Yeah, it's very. You have to make sure that you don't create a conflict with your daytime job when you're a volunteer.
Yeah, absolutely, and it is difficult. I mean, I don't know how often that happens now, to be perfectly honest with you, because I'm away from the coalface. But look, the special constabulary in the UK, there are certain things that the police service would not be able to do without them being there on a Friday, a Saturday night when the pubs are kicking out. That it's you cannot measure the amount of work that's done by having feet on the street. That's the bottom line. And I know we spoke of the City of London, and you've got your hats there. What I like about the city is that they will recruit to their special constabulary, often dependent on the roles that they undertake in their own community. So it could be that they're accountants and they'll go and work on a fraud department. And so they've got these skills that they can bring in, because
That's
cops are
right.
not accountants.
Right.
In
Yep.
fact,
Same thing with computer crimes.
yeah,
There's
absolutely.
all sorts of areas, yeah, that there's a overlap. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
absolutely.
in my case, I'm a professor, I teach. I can bring those skills to policing as well. So there's a lot of skills that people can bring from their daytime jobs.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. And how long will you do this for, sir?
Not much longer. As you mentioned, I've been doing it for almost 35 years now, as we talked about. It has been an exciting way to be involved in my community. There's not a day of the work that I have done that I would give up. But I think at some point I have to realize that it's time to let someone else take the lead, and time to let someone else do this work. So probably not much longer. Yeah.
You'll be sad though when you hand back your creds and you walk out the door. You'll be, because it's been such a huge part of your life.
You're absolutely right. I wrote a letter in 2022 to retire from the agency,
Right.
and I haven't submitted it yet because exactly that. I think that there's a lot about my personality, being me, that is in doing this work, and yeah, but it'll eventually get submitted.
And I mean, we sit here and we talk about different things, and you will remember, in the way that I do, the first sudden death that you ever went to, the first homicide that you attended, the first fatal road collision, the first collision, the first minor shoplifting, the theft.
Everything. Yeah.
It just sits in you, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
And unless you've been in this world, that's hard to explain.
It is. Yeah.
Because
And the complicated cases that you work, I don't know if you've ever, spent months working a single case because you wanted to follow it all the way to the end. Those kind of things will stick with you too. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You get it to the end, and then some jury will find them not guilty. But
That happens too.
yeah, it does, absolutely. Yeah. But Ross, before we conclude this interview, I've really enjoyed our chat today, and please keep in touch. I'm very grateful for your time. I know you've got a busy schedule.
Absolutely.
It's
Absolutely.
fantastic. Now, years ago, we used to take statements by hand. We used to handwrite statements. In fact, the first computer I saw in a police car was in Orange County. But we used to take it, and at the conclusion of the interview, we used to say to somebody, is there anything you'd like to add, alter, or correct in relation to the statement that you made today? So I'm going to give you that opportunity today to
That's
add,
awesome.
or correct, sir.
No, I think this has been a great interview. Thanks, Paul, for having me, and thanks for talking to me about it. This is one of the things I enjoy talking about. It's, as you mentioned, it's part of your life when you do this. It's exciting. It's something that really makes a difference, I think, in the community that you work in. I really appreciate the opportunity to spend time talking about something that I like to do. So thank you.
Yeah, no, and I can see your passion, sir. All I will ask is that when you come to the UK, you've got to let me know. All right.
Absolutely. And next time you come to the US, we'll definitely work out a time to meet up.
Oh, I will. Now, have you got a golf course on your campus?
The university does not have a golf course, no, but there are plenty of golf courses around.
Yes. I know there are. I've played at Celebration.
Yes, that's right.
And I played on the Disney courses this time, but several years ago, I played on a university campus. Very, very nice course as well.
There are many that do, and ours does not. Yeah, it was something thought about many years ago. I remember they had actually created some plans to put a golf course, but we never went through with it. So yeah.
Well, sir, thank you so much for your time. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you, sir.
Keep in touch, and I will speak to you when you are older.
Vice versa. Thank you.
Take care. God bless, mate. Keep safe.
Yeah. You too.
Thanks, mate. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.